Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 Wells Fargo Championship. This is my preview show. I'm going to go over all the course information. We're going to do player field analysis. We are going to go over my top 25 picks for the DFS side. We're going to go over all my betting. Yes, this is an all-in-one show. It's going to encompass ownership projections, weather, you name it, everything you need to know about the Wells Fargo Championship to lock in your DFS lineups and also some betting ideas. So that said, thank you for stopping by and let's go talk a little golf. All right, so it was a pretty entertaining Mexico Open. I didn't mind it at all. Now, of course, I talked about in the preview show that if somehow possible, Jon Rahm came with a C game and Finau also, came with his C-B game, that we could possibly have a nice long shot. That did not happen, right? And I saw on the good news was at least Jon Rahm did not win another tournament. Now, Tony is kind of the king of these, weak field events. He's just been knocking them off. The Houston Open. He won, the Rocket Mortgage and the 3M Open. So I guess if Tony is in a weak field, what was he, 10-1, 12-1 going in, then it's probably something that we want to bet on going forward. But probably as soon as I do that and change kind of my, how I bet on the golf side, he would probably not even compete, probably miss the cut, knowing Tony. But anyways, good tournament. Of course, I was rooting for my buddy Akshay Bhatia. And I want to make this pretty quick. We are going to jump right into some stroke gain information. It's kind of odd that literally if you look at last year's stroke gain information and the guys that finished on the top, pretty much the same field. And that's pretty rare that happens. Of course, Tony and John kind of just flipped, where Tony last year came in a T2. Jon Rahm, of course, won. And we'll look at those stats. But if we look at what happened from a stroke gain this year at the Mexico, the big difference was what Tony did with the putter, gaining 5 strokes. And the analysis was dead on. I did very well on the DFS side, did well on the showdown side, just like I said, the betting side. And it's never going to work out for me on the betting side because I'm never going to bet these guys 3-1 like Jon Rahm was, or less than 3-1. I'm not even what we've got for the Wells Fargo. The odds, again, kind of just make me sick. And really, it's the elevated events. I mean, I think the elevated events were awesome from a golf betting side for the bookmakers and not so much for the people that like to bet on golf. Move that aside, back to what I was talking about on the stroke gain side. Jon Rahm still did well. You can see the irons were maybe not as sharp. Of course, he had kind of a slow start on Thursday. I think ended up, pulling out like a 4-under round. And then, of course, set the course record on Saturday, shooting 10 under, 61. And then Sunday just, still had a good round of golf, just didn't do enough. Of course, Brandon Wu is also someone that I picked from a ball striking perspective, of course, what he did here last year. And you can see, you could still, when I said, hey, we need guys that are really good off the tee, as in driving distance, and guys that, could putt and showed putt on past Palm. And you can see, even when he actually lost strokes in the field of the irons, those 2 stroke gain categories got him to a 3rd place finish. Of course, I, had a whole little breakout segment on Akshay Bhatia and what he's done and these type of, grass types. Of course, his went on the Korn Ferry Tour, the Great Exuma, what he did at Puerto Rico, stayed true to form and gained a couple off the tee, almost 7 strokes on approach. And I believe on Saturday, he had a crazy putting round, but was gaining 7 strokes on the field. I think rumor has it that he was talking to Harry Hall and actually switched over to that aim point system for this tournament. And as we've seen, I mean, it could be a quinky dink, but did probably the best he's ever done and sunk a lot of long range putts. Then my buddy Austin Smotherman, who, if you've been following me for a while, was very high on for a long time. I still like him, but I mean, he had a pretty rough beginning to the 2023 season. Came out of nowhere, and I was not on him for a first round leader, shooting 8 under. That kind of stung because I had some first round leaders that were at that like 6-7 under, but did not have Austin Smotherman. But good for him. Pretty good tournament. I mean, he did a lot of it on Thursday and kind of piddled like 1 under the next few days. My buddy Griot's been playing good golf with a couple good finishes. Of course, he was one of my picks. Eric Cole, I've actually starting to warm up to a little more. He was not kind of guy that I was looking at, right? I look at as him more of a strategic plotter, very, hits a lot of fairways, pretty decent irons. But man, this guy's got a ridiculous short game from a putting and chipping side. So someone to keep an eye on going forward, especially when we get to the RSMs and the Colonials and all that. It's kind of where I'd want to bet him. And then my buddy Cameron Champ out of nowhere, he was one of my picks. I even bet him and was hoping like heck that he could do it, and played amazing golf. And of course, what I've seen with Cameron, when he shows, a little form, watch out the next weekend. He could show up again. Not saying he'll win this elevated Wells Fargo event, but could he top 10? Definitely a possibility. The course kind of fits him. And he's also, I think, if I off the top of my head, has had some decent success at Quail. He gained with the putter. A lot of it, what's shocking, is he gained with the irons 5 strokes. That's a huge for Cameron Champ. And also, of course, as usual, gains off the tee. And then Ben Taylor kind of rounded it out. All right, so real quick, let's go look at last year. So as I mentioned, Jon Rahm, instead he had first. And you can see he gained 3 strokes with the putter, a little better than last year. Kurt Kitayama, someone I'm a little bit interested on for the Wells Fargo. There's Brendan Wu, Tony Finau, and then again, Cameron Champ showing up. Lipsky, he was in the field, but Smalley, he was terrible. Riley was not. Aaron Wise, of course, I believe is dealing with the mental health thing. So anyways, it's just pretty interesting that literally you have a very similar top 5 kind of finishing guys. That's pretty rare, back-to-back years at the same tournament, same course. And then the only thing I'm going to note, if you actually just took the ball striking perspective, Gary Woodland actually at one time was leading the field. You could still see the green was right up there, even though he finished 39th, but lost 7.4 strokes. Now, I'll tell you right now, the first bet that I made in the morning, Monday morning for the Wells Fargo, was Gary Woodland at 90-1. And I think, quite a few people are probably on that. If you're watching the stroke gain data, see what guys are doing. Gary's ball striking looks like it is back. And, he's had some good putting outings, right? I mean, at the RBC, he gained with putting, but of course, the around the green was not as good. But someone definitely that has done well at these type of courses, and also at Quail in the past, Quail Hollow, where they'll be playing. And so, yes, that was one of my first bets, and someone I still recommend for like a top 10 finish. Okay, so I wanted to keep that recap pretty quick. I felt like the last show we got a lot to cover, and I want to move through some of this information fast and spend a little more on maybe the analysis and the picks. So onto the Wells Fargo. Of course, we are now flying from the west side of Mexico all the way over to the east side of the U.S., and we are going over to Charlotte, North Carolina, where they will peg it up at Quail Hollow Club. This was built back in 61. And there's some interesting things that we got to look at when we're looking at a historical perspective at Wells Fargo. Of course, the championship, this event started in 2003, all the way up until actually when they were having a PGA championship there. They actually redid the greens, redid the grass type, and had like really totally new green complexes. That was all kind of created for the PGA Championship in 2017, which of course JT won. Then also the President's Cup, as we know, last year, just this past fall, was actually held here. So that's the big thing, is if you are doing your own kind of analysis, and you probably know this, but just to make a heads up that, of course, the Wells Fargo Championship was not played at Quail last year. It was played at PTC Potomac, which I always mess it up, at Avondale Farms, which is a total different course, but amazing enough, Max Homa is not back to back, but has won the Wells Fargo Championship twice on 2 total different venues. And I believe that if you look at the TPC Potomac, is a very different kind of course than what Quail is. It's a very strategic, very tight, again, more like a Colonial, or even where they play at the Sony. So we are on a big boy course. It is a par 71, and it is playing at 7,538 yards. Fairways of Bermuda. Rough right now is stating 2 inches. From past, usually the rough was a little higher, but what I've gotten from the superintendent sheets saying 2-inch Bermuda, which, Bermuda is very sticky, still causes problems, but if it's at 2 inches, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And they do have overseeded ryegrass in the fairways in the rough. And then on the greens, again, you've got this Bermuda is the base, and then they did the POA Trivials overseed, which we saw quite a bit of this in the Florida swing. It is a full player field of 156 players. A lot of them we've been seeing. Cuts have been around 144. And of course, it is T65 and ties. We'll move on to the weekend. Historical cut line, of course, not including TPC last year, Potomac, is +2 to +4 here at Quail. And then again, you got to remember, we've had some different things. So last year, I mentioned, that's why it's highlighted, Max Homa won the Wells Fargo, total different course at 8 under. Even though, funny enough, the scoring still sticks around, very similar to what it plays like at Quail. But the last year the actual event was held at Quail was when Rory won at 10 under, and that's when Keith Mitchell was actually in the hunt, and even Scott Stallings was doing pretty well, if I remember right. I think I even have some notes of some quinky dinks that happened in 2021. I remember because I played Max Homa, probably of course in the 4-day classic, but also was playing him in Showdown, and the guy just came out and laid an egg on Thursday. Friday was terrible. He shot like 77, 76. Like, it was just brutal to watch. And he missed the cut, which, was a bit shocking for everybody, of course, of his past history and how he was playing at the time. And then the other thing I remember was Bryson DeChambeau. I think I was also even playing in his group, but I got to watch a lot of him. And he thought he missed a cut. I remember this. He flew back home, and then literally the cut moved up, and he got in, and then came back and shot like 8 under or something like that over the next 2 days, and ended up like with a top 10 finish. So those are the things I remember of the 2021 event. Of course, COVID canceled the 2020, and they didn't reschedule it. And then so before that was 2019 when Max Homa won his first event, which was the Wells Fargo on the PGA Tour at 15 under. You got Jason Day with his last win on the PGA Tour was also here. And of course, everybody's been waiting for Jason Day to get the breakthrough win again. He's been playing amazing golf. So not a bad place. I think the odds kind of reflect that. I think he's like 30-1. It's something that I'm not really interested in an elevated event. But anyways, just side note, he won 12 under. And then I just wanted to call out, if you go back to already 2017, Brian Harman, of course, when he won the Wells Fargo, it was not played here because of the PGA Championship. It was played at Eagle Point. So you got a lot of kind of nuances when you're doing historical kind of referencing of who's done what if you're not, real familiar with that. Talk about the greens. Pretty tricky greens. They are some of the larger greens on the PGA Tour, probably not too far off what we've seen. And I actually think the Mexico Open, from a stroking analysis, is going to be pretty similar to what we're going to be looking at for guys that we're going to be picking here. Of course, a much better field than what we had. But you are, if you probably noticed, John Rahm went and played the Mexico Open. He decided to skip this event. And even Scotty Scheffler. We got some other guys. I think Tom Hoagie's taking this one off. I'm trying to think of anybody else off my mind, but not quite a few, but a few guys are taking. I think Billy Horschel decided to take this event off. Back to the course, number of sand bunkers, you got 61. Sand does typically show up that, you need to be pretty good out of sand. Of course, a lot of it's around the greens. You've got 4 water hazards, but 7 holes actually water comes into play. And the greens are running at 12 and pretty fast. And these are pretty interesting greens where there's guys that typically just show up and putt well here, like a Killer Keith, even Victor Hovland. Some guys that typically we don't think of as great putters, but for some reason when they get on Quail, they figure these greens out and they do well here. Course defense, which you're going to hear about this a ton. Of course, we're back to the the final finishing 3 holes. We had the snake pit at the Valspar at Copperhead Innisbrook. Now we've got the Green Mile, and of course 16, 17, and 18 are the finishing holes. And of course in the President's Cup, I'm going to talk a little bit about that to show you guys the finishes for the guys that played in the President's Cup here this past fall and how they did. But I just want to call out that the routing was different for that event. They wanted to bring in the finishing 3 holes into the actual event and not have it where guys were already beat and didn't have to play those. Almost the toughest 3 holes, right? You got the number 1, number 3, and number 4 handicap hole, something like that. I think you have the number 1, number 2, and number 4 handicap hole is what you finish on. And you can see, 506 yards, par 4 for 16. You got a long par 3 where water kind of banks the whole left side. And typically towards the weekend, they have the pin on the left side and it can feed off into the water. And then you got this really long finishing hole, almost 500 yards. So you can see about 1,200 yards of golf that you got to play in 3 holes. Of course, there's tree line, but I feel like the fairways are somewhat generous here. And if you do get off the beaten path, a little bit like Augusta, you can get yourself back into play. Now, again, if the rough is at 2 inches, Bermuda, it's going to be sticky. It's, depending. It's also been from my understanding, pretty wet winter and even a wet spring. Tight mode, areas on the side, which Bermuda typically, depending against the grain, when you're chipping, we've seen that being difficult for these guys in the past. So again, runoff, and then of course around the green. The notes that I have from past, you need distance off the tee. Preferably, of course, I've added a little bit of fairway and regulation. Now, funny enough, if you look at past results, it wasn't indicative that you had to hit the fairways here. Distance definitely is the thing that overrates that. I think a little bit of scrambling helps. Good around the green, as I mentioned. one thing you're going to notice is a ton of putts outside of 25 feet. You're going to see a lot of 30, 40, 50 footers. That's something I'm looking at in the model. And I already kind of mentioned, the one thing also about 2021 that sticks out in my brain forever is that Phil was actually your first round leader, Phil the Thrill Mickelson, shot 7 under day one here. And by the time the tournament was over on Sunday, he was 7 over and actually in last place. Now, why I bring this up was when he not too long after, of course, he won the PGA Championship at Kiowa. And this was literally one of the only signs of recent form for Phil that you could even point to that he showed. So again, the quinky dink of him winning that PGA Championship is still a small miracle in my mind. Okay, so of course this tournament's been around a while, and I'm sure you've probably seen this track, but if you want to just get a quick understanding, you can see, of course, all the trees lining all these holes. The main body of water kind of comes into play on the Green Mile, which you'll see here. There's 16, the long par 4. You've got this short par 3. I mentioned the water around, the majority of that green. And then you finish up on the long 18 here, as you can see. So we'll go into a little more views of that. So this is kind of a better overview of the Green Mile. And I mentioned 16 here. Again, you've got this water protecting the green. If you run off here, you're in trouble. Then you come over to the par 3. And as I mentioned, the pin typically Sunday is going to be even further over with this runoff and could go into the water. And then, of course, you tee off. And then you've got this creek that runs like the whole length almost of the fairway of 18th, which definitely can come to play. And typically you're going to try to drive the ball somewhere into here for your approach shot to cover over there. But anyways, that gives you just a little bit of visual, and you can really kind of see the tree line of the fairways, but some room to drive it, as I mentioned. And then here's another visual of 18 that you can see, again, this creek kind of running all the way down the tee. All right, so not a whole lot to talk about on the scorecard. Again, you'll see those finishing 3 holes, some of the hardest. The other ones, of course, you tee off. It's not a gentle handshake. One of the tougher holes, this long par 4 to start. You got a 250-yard par 3. You also have a drivable par 4 that's kind of fun to watch, this number 8, where, if guys are going to go for it, a layup, but it is a scoreable hole there. Of course, the 3 par 5s as usual for a par 71. And then you got a little reprieve here right before, so you can get hopefully a couple birdies. Again, another drivable par 4 before you go take on the Green Mile. Then the easiest hole is right before that, this par 5, 577. I see nothing in the ways of a showdown that is better, where, I kind of felt like, as I mentioned last week at the Mexico Open, that if you went off the back the way that the kind of 18 went into the first couple holes, you had an opportunity to, another shot at a consecutive birdie bonus. If it's going to happen on this, the front would be somewhere between 7 and 9, even 7 through 10. You could string, possibly it's that 8 number, this long par 4 here that could cause an issue. And then possibly maybe the best place would be 13, 14, 15 to get that consecutive birdie bonus, but no issues. The only hole, if you pull up the official scorecard, the only hole that has changed will be this 3 on number 4, which was playing 167 back in 2021. And now it is playing at 184. So a little more distance. I don't know, like 15 to 18 yards was added, and that was it. So that is your total yardage again. All right. So a little bit different than I used to kind of do. What did past winners do here? Really what I was always looking at is, hey, what have the top 10 finishers done from a stroke gain in the past, which always kind of verifies what I'm doing, but I like to historically look at. So I'm looking at here 2021, of course, not looking at the 2022 because it was not played at Quail. And you can see, of course, off the tee, not one person had anything in the red, so you definitely need to gain there. Irons are always crucial, but you can see some guys still top 10 without gaining a ton. Luke List would be 1, of course, Patrick Reed, which he always gets typically on these tougher courses, got it done with the putter and around the green. Around the green, like I said, from a stroke gain, doesn't really elevate on the top 5 finishing. But of course, the putting is going to be key, as it typically is. We've had those offs like, a couple of years ago when Spieth, like I said, backdoored into the RBC. One of the rare times I've seen guys actually lose strokes with the putter and win a tournament, but he also chipped in a ton. So, and of course, if you start to look at the names here, except for Abraham Ancer, who, again, you could get it done if you're hitting, every fairway, good with the long irons. That's Abraham Ancer. And then, have the putter kind of be positive. He had a second here, but typically you're looking for the guys that are elite with distance off the tee. So you got Rory, you got Keith Mitchell, Victor Hovland. Also with the long irons, you're going to see when we get into modeling, Gary Woodland, Luke List, Matt Wallace, Aaron Wise, DeChambeau. I mean, all those guys are hitting it on average around 320 plus off the tee. And then we go back to 2019, the year Homa won. You got even a little more. And of course, this was not an elevated event, but it still shows up guys that are really good ball strikers and have distance. So Sergio, hits it over 300, really good with the long irons. Homa, he hits it even, I feel like a little further even at this time, but he averages 300, a little bit over, and of course is just deadly with that 200 plus yards coming in. Paul Casey, Jason Duffner, Fowler, Keith Mitchell shows up again. Johnny Vegas, Rory, again, overwhelmingly gaining strokes off the tee. The putting shows up again. You can see around the green. Really doesn't show up, but again, it's such a large greens that if you're missing a lot of these, you're having a rough day with the irons. Kind of, again, back to if you look at the Tournament of Century of Champions at Kapalua, 7,000 square feet of greens. You should be hitting a lot of them, and which is going to take the round green number down. All right, so the player profile that I'm going with for the Wells Fargo, this is kind of the stroke gain analysis ranking that I'm going with. Literally, you can go ball striking or driving distance, flip those either way. But ball striking, it's going to be heavily weighted. Driving distance, heavily weighted. Approach, those three will consume a lot of the weight. We'll go into the weighting. The number one proxy to the pin that you're going to want to look at that is very unique to this, a lot like the Mexico Open, was 200 plus. 31% of the shots that they're going to hit coming into these greens are going to be over 200 yards. So that's something we definitely want to focus on. I mentioned the putting outside of 25 feet. Scrambling and sand saves, I got around the green, but really the scrambling and sand saves are two things I'm putting it at a lower percent of weighting, but they are something I want to look at. Then you've got a lot of these long par fours. That's also a little unique, 450 to 500. Got 6 of those. And then bogey avoidance will be put into the model again. This is a tournament. I actually hit it dead on. Again, I said it's going to be even a better scoring at the Mexico Open. They were dealing with more wind. The conditions there at PV, Puerto Vallarta, was immaculate. The wind was down, so those guys went out and shot. And now I forgot the actual, I think it was 2,400. That's right about where I had that tournament would finish if the wind stayed the way it did. Here you're looking at somewhere, max maybe, 13 under will win the day, but I'd say somewhere around 10 under should do it. Okay, so with all that said, of course, I built a custom stat model as always. I always start out on recent form, and you can see the weightings for those stroke gain areas that I picked out. So again, ball striking the heaviest at 25%. And again, if you don't know what that is, it is off the tee and approach combined. Driving distance, I did not put anything with fairways in here. I'm just going to go with driving distance at 15, approach at 20. I'm really weighting that proximity 200 plus out pretty heavy at 10. Putting overall at 5, and then at 25 outside at 5. So you got 10% on the putting. Sand saves around the green. And then par fours, that 450 to 500, 6 of them at 5, and then bogey avoidance. So that's the custom larger stat model that I went with to see where I wanted to be in. So the first way I did it was 12 rounds, last 3 tournaments of golf, very, very recent form, with no filters turned on, and who got spit out, of course. 20 with the recent win. Jordan Spieth's been just having top 5 finishes over and over and over. Patrick Cantlay has really surged since he locked in his clubs that he's going to be moving forward with. I mean, that happened quite a while ago, but if you remember the first few events that we saw Patrick at, it was pretty rough. Taylor Moore, of course, coming off that win, I believe that was the Valspar. Patrick Rogers been playing great golf. Had a great Sunday at the Mexico Open. Gary Woodland, you can see the odds. I mean, this is coming from even yesterday, dropped down to 75 to 1. Sam Stevens, I think is interesting. We'll talk about him from a betting perspective. Well, actually, I'll say it now because I don't know. I think I put it after my betting card, but I did bet him a top 10. I believe it was somewhere around 12 to 1, something like that. I like him for a top 10 finish here. Of course, Rory, your favorite at 7.5 to 1. Victor Hovland at 20 to 1. Got T Hat, Stefan Jaeger, Max Homa, which I believe that's dropped down to like 22 to 1. JT, which, everybody's been kind of waiting, but man, the putter has still just been so rough. But again, we're always saying, if you got all the other skills and that putter flips, watch out. Fitzy at 22 to 1, of course, coming off his one at the RBC. And then you got Tommy Fleetwood, who had a, pretty solid showing in the Florida swing at 55 to 1. That is your top 15 golfers against my model over the last 3 tournaments or 12 rounds. the best showings. And then also a little larger sample of taking 6 tournaments, 24 rounds, same exact model, no filters. Pretty much a lot of the same guys, but you got Finau, Homa, Rory, so the batting order changes a little bit. Cantlay, Spieth, Xander, Hovland, Gary Woodland again pops up there, Morikawa. Stefan Jaeger, who also came out just crazy at the Mexico Open, and then that fell back. Wyndham Clark, who actually struggled to make the cut, but did, and then had a pretty good Sunday. I believe he shot 6 under on Sunday at the Mexico Open. I'm still interested in him here, and at the Wells Fargo. I believe this is a course that fits him. Fleetwood, Ricky, Eric Cole, and then Joseph Bramlett to round out your top 15 guys. If you look at 24 rounds of golf or the past 6 tournaments against my model. All right, so always, recent form. Now we want to look at historical information, specifically at Quail Hollow, and looking at the past 3 tournaments here, because that's about what we've got of actual data for the new changes to the course, as I mentioned, when JT won the PGA Championship. But JT comes out number 1 with that win. Gary Woodland's had a lot of good showings here. Killer Keith's had a couple top 10s. Of course, Rory won here back in 2021 and also does very well at this track. Victor Holland, Joel Damon, funny enough, he doesn't fit the model or the typical player profile, but he hits a ton of fairways and can get hot. Of course, with the irons, pretty good from a distance. It's typically the putter as most that Joel needs to go. Duffner, who again fits into that, ball striking extravaganza, but typically is just brutal around the greens and putter. Ricky Fowler, Molinari, who just hits a ton of fairways, was good with the long irons, but I don't think his game is still where it used to be. James Hahn, who actually has won the Wells Fargo, but it was prior to the changes. Webb Simpson, Nick Watney, who's actually, funny enough, has, again, some finishes back in the day. Max Homa, Stuart Sink, who still does have length and is pretty good from that 200 plus. And Adam Scott. And then always, you can look at this a different way now. You need to kind of remove this 2022. Of course, again, that was TPC Potomac where they played. But if you look at these 3 rows, 2018, 19, and 21, again, remove the 17 because that was Eagle Point. So you need to kind of focus your visuals. And the guys that you can kind of call out, of course, would be Rory, Killer Keith, Luke List has had some good showings here in those 3 years. Joel Damon, some really good showings over those 3 years. And then even Duffner, funny enough, if you're looking for a cheap play at the very bottom from a DFS perspective, you could chuck him in. But again, to give you some understandings from a historical. All right, I mentioned I was going to talk about the President's Cup very quickly. Of course, you got the USA team here, and you've got the international team to the right. And if you want to know the guys that did very well in this event on Quail Hollow, no further Max Homa went 4-0, and the reason why he wasn't 5-0 possibly was, I think it was a 4-ball that he sat out. It was one of these. He did sit out one event. In singles, he, of course, won his singles match. Jordan Spieth actually went 5-0, won his singles match, of course. And then the best showing on the international side was Siwoo Kim, and he went three wins, 1 loss, no ties. Adam Scott, who I'm actually kind of interested in from a DFS play. We'll talk about him further. But just to give you some understandings, if you're curious how guys did at the President's Cup at Quail Hollow this past fall. All right, now moving on. The one thing I would always tell you guys, if there's one example of names or lists that you might want to use, the best ball strikers here is a really good list from a DFS perspective. And so looking over the past 9 tournaments, 36 rounds of golf, and going down the list. So this would get you all the 2023 season and probably a little bit of the swing season, or also the end of the fall FedEx Cup. Rory, Finau, Cantlay, Morikawa, Woodland, Connors, Hovland, Xander, Day, List, Hatton, Hayden Buckley, Ricky Fowler, Sungjae Im, Cameron Young, and Homa. Those guys there would be a pretty nice list. That's actually top 16 to plug in and use from a DFS perspective. Now, you probably might have to get to a couple of guys. Maybe Luke List is pretty cheap, Hayden Buckley, but that's not a bad player pool right there if you want to go with just a simple best ball striker list. And then if you're curious, if you want to build one from an Iron Man, who's the best with the irons over the past 6 tournaments, 24 rounds of golf, just again, purely approach. Finau, Xander, Morikawa, Spieth, Fowler, Homa, Wyndham Clark, Rory, Hovland, Woodland, Stefan Jaeger, Fleetwood, Straka, Eric Cole, and Matty Walsh. Also, if you want to put an all best iron approach guys team together, there's your list. And then if you're, where I mentioned 30% of the shots are coming at outside 200, if you're interested in who's done the best on that, past 6 tournaments, 24 rounds, you got Patrick Cantlay, Gary Woodland, Ricky Bobby Shelton, Adam Svensson, Michael Thomas, Blackbeard out of nowhere pops up, Tony Finau, Kurt Kitayama, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Danny Willett, Austin Smotherman, Pearson Coody, who's had some nice showings. Of course, has a couple wins on the Corn Ferry. Ben Taylor, Stefan Jaeger, and Nick Hardy, who won the amazing Zurich Classic, who is, funny enough, a really good ball striker, just typically a really bad putter. And on that note, if you are curious and want to put focus on just for shits and giggles of best Bermuda putters or build a team that way, if you're curious or to last. Now, on these, I take larger samples. So this is past 9 tournaments on Bermuda grass, 36 rounds. Ben Taylor actually comes up number 1. Sammy Burns, Bermuda Burns, of course. Taylor Montgomery, just lethal with the putter. Sam Ryder, Hatton, Putnam, Kuchar, Werenski, my buddy that you guys always know, 2001. No, I do not have any kind of bet on him for this tournament. Taylor Moore, Harry Hall, Ben Griffin, Alex Noren, Fitzy, Hosler, Fleetwood, Finau, and Richard Werenski. Funny enough, I did talk a little bit about him at the Mexico Open. Actually did make the cut. I don't know where he finished, but I think we talked about it. I was a little shocked that he actually gained more off the tee than I actually thought. Where's he on driving distance? So 92 out of 156. So I think it was coming in around 300 yards on average for our buddy Richie Werenski. All right, so comp courses, I looked at this 2 different ways. The first was, if you want to look at a comp course that sticks with the Bermuda types, with also similarities from a distance, par, of course, the API, the elevated event that we had earlier this season would fit in that ballpark. You had the Valero Texas Open where, of course, Corey Connors, not repeated as a champion, but has won twice at the Valero. Actually, his only 2 PGA wins have been both at the Valero. They're at TPC San Antonio, the AT&T Oaks course. Of course, the Valspar, where, we know Bermuda Burns has won, had a back-to-back victories there. And I am trying to remember, what was that, Taylor Moore? Is that where he won his, I feel like it was, I don't want to say a backdoor, but kind of out of nowhere. And then the Sanderson Farms Championship, where Bermuda Burns has also had a victory. If you want to know on those courses, which is going to be a little skewed, right? Because some of the top guys don't play them. Of course, I'm also taking in Quail Hollow. JT is number 1. Rory, Spieth, Burns, Homa, Hovland, Hatton, Woodland, MJ, Duffy, Cantlay, Connors, Kitayama, Kuchar, Bradley, and Cameron Young. I still like that list against my model, against those courses. But then if you want to bring in where I think maybe he's a better comparable side, I like Murfield Village. Of course, that's bent greens. And then you got where they play the Riv, where they play the Genesis. Of course, that's POA. I've always kind of said you had this, especially back in the day before elevated events, you had like what we called like the mini majors. And I always felt like that was the Genesis, Jack's Place, Memorial, API, and Wells Fargo were kind of like signature events that you still got a pretty strong field and also played, again, like a little bit of a mini major. Out of those, of course, Homa, who's won the Wells Fargo twice, once at Quail, has also won the Genesis. He's number 1. You got Rory Cantlay, who's done very well at Jack's Place. Of course, Rory at Wells Fargo. You got Victor Hovland, who just plays well on all these tracks, but can't win on the mainland. He's, for some reason right now, just kind of stuck to winning on these kind of vacation island swing courses. You got Xander, who's always, in these tough tracks, going to top 5 you. Davis Riley shows up a bit because of the Valspar good finishes. Cam Young, JT, of course, Cam Young, just played very well at the Riv. JT, Morikawa, Hatton, Thigala, Woodland. Again, MJ, Duffy shows up, Spieth, and Lowry. All right, so with all that said, of course, I'm going to share with you my betting card. You're going to notice, compared to the Mexico Open, a bit slimmed down, but still, you guys are always going to notice that I'm not looking at the favorites. Now, what I'm doing, just so you know, is that Monday mornings, as soon as the odds come out, I look and I try to make sure I hit these guys that are higher odds, like a Gary Woodland, who is 90 to 1, because they're the ones that are going to move down as action comes in. The guys that are 22, 25 to 1, they're not going to move a whole lot. No matter, they get action, they're going to get like a steady action, and they might move to 20 to 1, but do I really care if I lose a couple points on those guys? No. And also, the way I've been doing it is, as the tournament kind of starts to progress, is when I'll put my bets in. So let's hypothetically say like a Victor Hovland. he has a bad Thursday and his odds go to 30, 40 to 1. That's when I'm going to put my bet on Victor Hovland, knowing that Victor could definitely come back, have a good Friday, make the cut, and show up Saturday, Sunday, and possibly have a chance to win, especially in a tournament that 10 under is about the mark that is going to win this tournament. So I just wanted to give you guys my methodology. If you watch this and you're always saying, well, this guy's always betting the long shots. Well, yes, it's golf, and these guys are all pros. It can happen over and over. We've seen it. Phil Mickelson at the PGA, Kitayama at the API. Yes, it's a lot more rare in these elevated events, but also if I'm going to put money on golf, I want to hit these guys in the long shots. And then where I make my shots on the guys that are more favored is let me work on that. Live betting is how I do it. With all that said, I mentioned also Kitayama and Sam Stevens. I have both of those bet at a top 10, somewhere around 10 to 15 to 1, I believe it is. And you could say, but I like those guys. I think you're getting really good odds that they could end up in that top 10 arena. And then, of course, I mentioned Gary Woodland at 90 to 1. Wyndham Clark, I kind of feel like he didn't have the greatest Mexico Open. I played him in Showdown on the opening Thursday, and the guy just was really struggling for whatever reason with the putter. It's why he didn't. It wasn't so much ball striking. And then, of course, it came back Saturday, Sunday. Joseph Bramlett, again, he has very unique skills that could fit this course, but needs to putt Will Gordon. These two, I think, are very similar in their game types. Patrick Rogers, you could lump with these three guys. And, of course, I'm still waiting on his first win. I'm not saying it's going to be here, but if the putter goes, his skill set does allow him. And then Cameron Champ, this is almost one of those where I've hit Cameron Champ, I mentioned a couple times in the past history for nice odds. And when I hit him at 3M, he showed up and had a good outing at the John Deere. So in my own brain, there's a little correlation there. Now the odds, again, are crazy that Cameron Champ would ever actually win this, but he's won 3 times on the tour, and he does have that kind of Siwoo Kim thing where, either he's going to show up or he's going to miss the cut. We'll see how it works out, but he has the skill set that could get around here. It would be, he would have it, need to have a nice, really nice putting outing like when he won his other events. Okay, so that's my betting card. It's, pretty slim. And like I said, I'll do some live betting as it goes on. Last thing, the weather I'm going to touch on now, because really there's nothing that I see right now. Tuesday, Wednesday, they're actually, dealing with this, if you live in the Midwest or whatever, got that crazy, out of Canada down trough that's, been very cold and very windy. And that should all dissipate by the time they actually tee it off on Thursday. And then you can see nothing too crazy. They're going to get some rain Friday night, maybe into Saturday morning. So we'll soften the course up again, which is why we need guys with distance. And but other than that, I don't see any flight advantages right now. I don't see, it looks like it should be a good tournament and they can get all the golf in, hopefully, especially with this full field for Thursday, Friday. So nothing to really report, I guess is a simple way to put it on the weather side. Okay, let's go jump over to Fantasy National. Let's do some player analysis. Tell you who I'm looking at from my player pool from a DFS side. I'll show you ownership projections. Again, it's Tuesday, so a little bit should change, but I'll give you some ideas where the ownership's coming in, and then get you guys out of here, wrap this thing up. Okay, so I've hopped over into Fantasy National, and as always, if you're putting any money into the golf DFS side or betting side, definitely, and you want to do some of your own analysis. I do quite a bit for you guys, but there's a lot more that you can do within this tool. Give it a go. All right, that's my plug. And moving on, as always, we're going to be looking at DraftKings pricing, but of course, you can use these picks for any format, FanDuel, whatever you're doing. And I've also, as usual, done a lot of pre-work, kind of got it narrowed down to 25 guys that I'm going to point out for you. Quite a few of them in the lower area for you. So technically a top 20 is what I do, but I also had some guys down in the lower range to help you kind of fill out your rosters. You're going to be looking at the last 24 rounds of golf. This is where this data is being pulled in, or past 6 tournaments. I have no filters turned on here to the left. I've already done that analysis. Okay, and then real quick, I'll show you the weightings of the model. So if I click on that, you can see driving distance at 25, ball striking at 25%, approach at 24, and then that prox 200 out is at 13, and putting is at 13. So if you're also doing this on Fantasy National, my weightings if you're curious. So I've got this 5-stroke gain kind of, little mini model. You've got a lot of information you can see here on one screen. You got the pricing, projected ownership, cuts made. I left birdie's gain. Usually I'll do bogey avoidance when the scoring is going to be, but I kind of want to see, especially from a DraftKings perspective, of course, it's all about who gets the most points. Sometimes, even though a guy ends up in 10th, he can maybe outscore a guy that ends up in 3rd, whatever it is. So with that said, I kept the birdies gain. And then, of course, recent results to the right. You can see how they done in their last 5 finishes. And then, of course, tournament history. But we have to keep an eye on some of this, as like 2022, we know was not played at Quail. You got some decisions to make here at the 10 to 11,000. You got Rory, Xander, Patrick, and Tony coming in at the most expensive from a DFS perspective. If I'm going to pay that kind of money, there's not really a big separation, 900, I guess, between Rory and Finau. For me, I would just going to go ahead and keep it simple, stupid, and going to go with Rory. Now, there's a little nuance here. I'm a little upset. What I've noticed in the press schedule is that Rory will not be speaking to the press again today or tomorrow, which is, I think, kind of crazy. Now, will he maybe have a little quick presser or some kind of conversations on the Golf Channel? Maybe, but I'm going to be watching for that. I'm still very interested to know if there's anything going on because of what happened at the Masters, his finish. Of course, he pulled out of the RBC. If I hear anything or glean anything, I'll put it in a show tomorrow. But right now, my plan is not to do it before the lock show. I've got some other things I got to take care of. If I hear anything, that could change my opinion from a DFS perspective. If I play quite a few lineups with Rory kicking off the team, I might switch gears. Maybe it would go to a Xander. But like I said, all top 4 of these guys, I don't think you can go wrong with. Of course, that's why they're the most expensive. If you want to look at by past results, I mean, you could probably make an argument. Let's do this. I meant by history, of course, again, Rory, out of these guys, there's not even a comparison. I'd say Tony maybe has had probably the worst kind of past history. Cantlay's only played once and missed a cut here at Quail. Nothing really else. But all these guys have a skill set that should do very well here. But if you want to know who I'm going with at the very top, from a DFS perspective, I'm going to go with Rory. Then kind of moving down the 9,000 range, you got some decisions between Colin and Jordan and Homa, Fitzy, Hovland, Sanjay M, and Jason Day. And funny enough, I'm definitely skipping on Colin. He doesn't have the driving distance. Of course, he hits typically a ton of fairways, but that fade at times has not been working this year. He's getting the hooks and he's, kind of getting double misses. Also, the putter has been a debacle. He's had decent finishes. Of course, he missed a cut at the Arnold Palmer. Didn't look very good at the RBC, both elevated events. I feel like the Players is a better fit for him. I think he was like one of my outrights that I thought if he was going to have a win again since his dominant kind of 2021 season, it was going to be at the Players, and it didn't happen. So I'm off on Colin. That's where I'm at. Also, I just don't think it's the best fit for him. And he's actually never played this event, so we don't have a lot of history on him. Jordan Spieth, I mean, the guy's been playing really solid golf. As I mentioned, all the top 5 finishes or better, even a good showing at the Players. He played here once, but that was before the redesign. So it's going to be a little interesting there. But everything that he does should fit this course very well. So I have no issues. I'll be plugging in Jordan. Homa, funny enough, I was really back and forth on, and you guys know what a huge Max Homa slappy I am. But, I have been watching, of course, I watched him at the Zurich. The game did not look good. Of course, the Masters did not look good. He missed a cut at the RBC. So his recent form has not been well. So really what you're going against, you got to get rid of that 2022. You cannot use that. He missed a cut in 2021 and really had the win in 2019, then missed the cut the first year with the courses exactly the way it is now. I take that back. That was Eagle Point. So scrap that. I did not say that. Let's remove that. So really, you got to kind of go off 2021, 2019. And he's, he won and missed the cut and is not the greatest recent form. So I'm still going with Max. I'm going to pick him, but I'm picking him with caution and that he will not be played as much as like a Victor Hovland for me. I will, depending if it's 10 lineups, maybe Max is in 2. If it's 20, maybe he's in 4, but it's going to be something of that degree. But I'm still putting him in my player pool. Fitzy, actually, there's really no reason not to play Fitzy. Of course, he had a good chance to win at the TPC Potomac. I'm so glad when I don't have to say that course anymore. The ball striking and approach has come back quite a bit at the RBC. Let's go look at Fitzy right now. Yeah, so you can see he struggled with the irons, most of the year, but of course, RBC they came. So the curiosity be, will he carry over his play with the irons that he had? That's the big difference. I mean, we all know he's pretty good putter, pretty good around the green. He's got a little more distance off the tee, but the irons, really, you're looking at one good showing with the irons over the last like 7-8 tournaments. So that's where my issues. And of course, yes, I know I remember the neck thing and the issues, but and maybe he comes back. So I don't have an issue if you play Fitzy. Of course, would I maybe sprinkle him here or there? I don't know. But right now, I'm gonna be off on him. I'd much rather play Victor. He's you guys know, again, like a Homa, he's one of my top guys that I like to play. He's a ball striking master. Of course, the putter is typically the issue, but he's been playing really good golf. Let's go take a look at his putter real fast and see what's been up there. So the RBC, ball strike the crap out of it, really struggled. I totally forgot that he lost 7 strokes with the putter. But the Masters, I'm guessing he did okay. If you end up with a 7th, we don't know specifically. At least I don't have it in front of me. The players he gained, Arnold Palmer, so both those are Bermuda. Lost a little bit at the POA and also that Bermuda, and then gained and POA. So it's really kind of hit or miss. But we know on Bermuda, if you think about the courses where he's won, like at Mayakoba, that is also Bermuda. So we know he can get it down with the putter. And he's shown that he's done pretty well here. Played once, had a T3. So with all that, I like Victor Hovland. And that's where my lean is. Sungjae M, again, no issues. I think he's, we know he's solid. He's, missed a cut here when it was played at Quail in 2021, but he did have a T31. This proximity to 200 is actually kind of shocking for me. I mean, the guy just kind of feels like, honestly, when you watch him a lot, like a robot, man. I mean, the guy just hits a ton of fairways, typically pretty good with the long irons and hybrids, but you see here, if you look at the actual stroke gain data, that's just not the case. But I don't have an issue, but I'm going to kind of go off Sungjae. I'd rather play Jason Day. Of course, his last win I mentioned was on this track, but it was actually with the renovation, so no problem there. He's at a T24. He did miss a cut in 2021. And then this was kind of actually the start of Jason Day's kind of comeback. Of course, not on this track, as I mentioned, at Avondale Farms. But everything looks good. The putter, I don't think I need to go into any more specifics. If you've been watching golf this year, Jason Day is back and he's at a place that he's won before. So it'd be nice if he got his breakthrough here. Again, I don't like the odds. He was, I think, 30-1. That might have went down. I still feel like we should be getting a little better odds. I feel like the bookmakers, they know. I mean, again, if you look at like the top 15, top 10 guys, they're like, any of these guys can win. So we're just going to give them all the same odds and then go with it. JT, there's been some, I think he came out, 25-1? I think he's down again around that 20-1. And yeah, again, no problem. Of course, he won here the PGA Championship, which you're not going to see here show up, but it was on this track. And, kind of a mixed bag, right? I mean, he had a good showing at the Valspar, was probably his best, what we've seen. But, it's not been that great. And a lot of it's been the putter. But if the putter flips, which can happen, watch out. Ricky Fowler, yes, of course, he's also won. It was here. I definitely was prior to the changes. Pretty sure that. Let me just verify that I'm not incorrect, but it's been a while. I believe Ricky won the Wells Fargo. Yeah, way back in 2012. Again, that was prior to the green complex changes. But Ricky has been playing really solid golf this year. We've had these kind of resurgence of the Jason Days and the Rickies. Justin Rose got his win at Pebble Beach. But I don't know, man. It's even the betting. So it's crazy. I feel like that the betting odds are, I think, 30-1? I mean, something ridiculous for Ricky Fowler, who's not had a win now. And, since the Waste Management, I believe, was the last time. So, nope, I'm not paying 8,800. I can't still do it. And I am not betting him. But that's my own personal opinion. We'll see how that all works out. But I mean, some real nice recent form. And also he's got good course history. So that's what the bookmakers are stating. I've been watching Ricky for so long now that I still just need to see maybe some really in contention kind of, opportunities where that's what I don't feel like he's literally been on a Sunday in contention I'm going to blank now, but it's been a while. I'd rather put the money if I'm going to spend that. I'll go with Cameron Young, who's also had a bunch of top fives, but also I think is a better fit. Of course, he played here. Well, I take that back. That is at, again, Avondale Farms. But I mean, we know what this guy can do if the putter goes. That is his one kind of hiccup. But where was it at? The Masters? No. Arnold Palmer kind of showed up. Let me go look real quick. I feel like he did have a pretty good showing on Bermuda recently. I mean, there's RBC, but that was a while ago. I guess maybe not. I was just looking at the stroke gain putting over here. Arnold Palmer, he even lost. But if somehow he can go neutral, definitely could have an opportunity. I don't know to win, but at least top five. But I like Cameron Young. I'm also going to play some Sam Burns. I know he's not highlighted here. Like I didn't want to, pick a ton of guys, but I'm interested in Sammy. Everything makes sense here. I told you Valspar is a good comparable course. I feel like I mentioned he took that little hunting hiatus, not too far from like a Cam Smith. Took quite a bit of time off in the off season. I think his game is finally getting back into form. And of course, we're back on Bermuda, and he does the things that I like. But if you look at results, not the greatest. He had a WD in 2019 at T55, and I think you're getting him 35-1 last I saw. So pretty fair odds from a betting perspective. Terrell Hatton, right, had a nice little vacation, or not vacation, the Florida swing. Maybe, falling back, he missed a cut to Valero. The Masters, a little better showing at the RBC, but I feel like that course fits him a little better. Course history, not the greatest. Again, remembering that this is not Quail Hollow. But you can see his game should fit here. I don't know. At that price tag, there's other guys. I mean, I look at, I'll put a Cam Young in, I'll put a Burns in, I'll put a Sahith, or guys that I'd rather play than Terrell Hatton. I told you guys, Tommy Kim, the more and more that I've kind of watched his game. Now, he could fit that model of, Joel Damon getting it done a different way, and how Tommy Kim would have to get it done is hit all the fairways and do really well with the irons. But what I've kind of noticed is that I thought he was a better putter than he is. And more I'm seeing that he's not the greatest putter. Of course, he doesn't have distance, but he has accuracy. Pretty good ball striker, but you can see that 200 out. So there's a lot of areas that I'm not too excited to play Tom Kim. And of course, I like him, again, on a shorter course where it's kind of a shootout where he's done well in the past, hence the Wyndham or the Shriners. Sahith, I think this will fit him well. He has shown that he can handle these kind of big boy events. And trying to think what he's going, like 45-1, which again does not have a victory on the PGA Tour. He's had some close calls. The one that we all think about be Waste Management. And but Sanderson Farms, he's had a good showing there. That's one of the comparable courses that I talked about. But yeah, I like Sahith, so I will be plugging him. Lowry, I just can't do it. You can see the putter's just been a disaster. Brian Harmon, don't let this, again, that win fool you way back. That was not on this track. And I mean, you can kind of see not the greatest recent form. I remember, actually Tommy, I don't have a problem. I actually will probably sprinkle in some Tommy. He didn't make like the top 25 for you guys, but I'm just calling out that I do like Tommy Fleetwood's game at this course. I like what his form's been. And you can also see in 2021, he had a T14, and that was at Quail. Kucherno, can he get it done? He can, the way that he does it, but no, thank you. Same with Corey Connors. I want some more distance. And Corey, has not been as elite off the tee as we're used to. I always kind of looked at him as like a mini Victor Hovland, as in they're some of the best ball strikers I've ever seen when they're running at all cylinders. But yeah, I'm gonna take a pass. Even though I am a Corey Connors, will I plug him in on a showdown? Yep, I like Corey Connors for at least one round to go low. Now, this course is not the course that you're gonna have that every. You're gonna have guys shooting 7 under. I mean, it happens, but I don't know. Anyways, Killer Keith, I don't think I have a lot to talk about there. I mean, the guy's had a great record here. You see, he didn't do very well. And of course, I was tight now. If you looked at what he did at the Zurich, he was struggling. I mean, it was a different format, but he was not hitting the ball that well. Came out pretty well, but he struggled. I believe that was Saturday or Sunday. Saturday and Sunday, I feel like it kind of fell apart a little bit for him. But he's confident on these greens, and the guy, what he does very elite is one thing is hits it very long and hits it very straight. So I'm in for Killer Keith. Wyndham Clark, I'm still holding on that this is going to stay true, and this is a course that should fit him very well. Kind of similar to Killer Keith, a little better putter. The irons was the one thing that's always made me nervous with Wyndham, but they have been doing well. Let's go take a look because we do have the Mexico Open information here. So funny enough, the one thing that he typically gains is off the tee. The irons were still fine. He gained with the putter. I think that improved as the weekend went on. Like I said, if you looked at just the Thursday first round stats, he was definitely losing with the putter. I mean, he missed literally like 4-footers, 5-footers for eagle or for birdies and pars over and over and over. Siwoo Kim, I actually have no problem if you play him. I think he's not a terrible fit. What has he done here? Doesn't show up really from recent, but his game should be fine here. He's not long, but he kind of fits in that Corey Connors bucket. Good ball striker, pretty good around the green. I'm actually going to go to Keegan. You know, like I said, he kind of had a little surgence there, but you can see when I look at that T18, he also showed up at Avondale Farms, which is a shorter course, tighter, but the guy also can fit the mold of what we were talking about with the Corey Connors. But I think he's got a little more distance than Corey, and these are the kind of events that he'll show up for 7,700. He's the play that I'm going to go with. Taylor Montgomery, he does two things very well. Typically, he's got some distance, the putter, but again, it's this ball striking irons that make me a bit nervous. But the guy just figures a way to score, so I don't have an issue playing him. And at 7,600 in this field, I'll put a little bit of him in, but he's not going to make my top. I'd rather go with Taylor Moore. You can see just amazing ball striking everywhere, hitting on the stroke gain stuff. Of course, he won the Valspar, good showing at RBC. Pretty good for one, I would have to guess, his first major at the Masters. Good at a couple other elevated events. And funny enough, he did play, which I don't remember, Avondale Farms, Wells Fargo. Of course, I already mentioned, first bet that I make, I always tell you guys, first guy that comes to my mind. Before I do any analysis, I can always, of course, doing this for so long, know the guys that I want to bet at certain, and this was my first bet. Now, again, the putter is what it all comes down to, but just, if you can make an argument that, well, hey, JT, if he flips the putter, he should win. Well, Gary Woodland is also actually ball striking way better than JT, and you get a way better odds. And of course, yeah, he's been disastrous with the putter. I mean, you can see lose 7 strokes, 7. But I mean, if you just take tee to green, it's ridiculous. Gain 10, gain 8, gain 10, gain 6. So, like I said, I'm not a huge Gary Woodland slappy. I mean, like I said, I like the guy. He's a good guy, but I don't typically play him in DFS. I don't typically bet him. But this is an opportunity that I saw, and I knew that it was the putter that was just so bad that can he lose 7 strokes again? It could happen, but I don't think it should be that bad. Also, he's had some decent finishes here. So he's at 5th and, a WD and a miscut, so don't worry about that. He was dealing with that hip injury. And then 2016, before the changes, he had a T24. If I was going to pick a plotter, a Chris Kirk, I wouldn't mind. Again, that's driving distance. Of course, he hits a ton of fairways, a good ball striker, good on approach, good putter on Bermuda. I don't mind him, but he's not going to make my player pool. I'm going to go to Patrick Rogers. Told you I bet him. I believe at 100 to 1 he was at. Again, in good form. Man, same thing. I mean, I sound like a broken record. But if the putter goes, Patrick Rogers could win at this track. I believe that. Cam Davis, right? It's been Jekyll or Hyde. We just don't know what is going on. But I think from a DFS play, I think it's a good play. I've always said he typically outscores, especially now we're back down to 7,500. So I will play Cam Davis, and he might even get spring. I mean, the course should fit him. It's just, man, again, like the putting. Let's go take a look real quick. For a while there, he was spraying it all over the lot, too. So it wasn't just the putting. So he's still been gaining steadily off the tee. The irons were a little rough, and it's typically been the putter. He also had this nice run, just remember, in the late summer, fall, when we were all pretty high on him, and his price tag started to go through the roof. So you're getting Cam Davis on the cheap. It's a buy low opportunity. You know what? I'm going to click him. He is going to make my player pool. I'm adding 1. I think Davis Riley, of course, the Zurich win. Also, I think he's probably gotten to this course, right? Because he took off. Of course, him and Nick Hardy, pulled out of the Mexico Open. So I would guess he's gotten some practice in, so not a bad play there either. Hadwin, not the skill set I'm looking for. Denny McCarthy, not the skill set I'm looking for. Emiliano Grillo is a guy that I just play. He, again, fits right into the Corey Connors kind of mix of just, typically a very good ball striker. Doesn't hit it the longest. And when I say the longest, he still averages 300 yards. But now to be considered, elite length, you got to be averaging around 320, 330 off the tee. But the guys had this back to back. I think we're all looking and kind of seeing what he did. What was it? Late summer last year. Where was it at? So kind of right here, where the 3M, the John Deere, of course, not elevated, same fields as Sanderson Farms. We're kind of hoping that this trend stays. And at 7,400, it's a good plug. Of course, again, the putter. I'm always going to play ball strikers. I've always, told you guys that, the putter can come and go. You're never going to just all of a sudden be an elite ball striker. That takes a long time for a skill. So if I've ever got to pick which way I'm going to lean on courses that demand this kind, I'm always going to go with ball strikers over the guys that, good short game and putting. All right, moving along. I told you Hayden Buckley kind of showed up a little bit. So if you're looking for a cheaper play, not bad. Joel Damon, I told you he's got a pretty good history here, but pretty rough go of it from a recent form. JJ Spawn, again, if you're on a course that you need a lot of fairways, he doesn't hit it long, but not the right guy. I'm going to go to Adam Scott. He's got the distance. He's also had pretty decent kind of form here, but we know what he's done at, won at Riviera. He's won at these big boy courses in the past. And I like his game for 7,300. I think it's a great play. Nor, no, thank you. And if you watch the Mexico Open, especially I think it was Saturday or Sunday, of course, he hits a big fade or cut, slice, whatever you want to call it. More of a fade, I should say. But, man, it wasn't. And he was just terrible off the tee. I already mentioned Stefan Jaeger, the putter. But, good ball striker. Again, tighter course maybe. Todd. Again, a lot of these guys, hey, we got the Byron Nelson. I think it's coming up next weekend, I believe, right before the PGA. So we'll wait and play occasionally there. I'm so curious to see what his odds are. Probably going to be like 30 to 1 or something stupid. And I believe they're going to have a decent field, right? Because we have a lot of guys that are going to want to play, like a Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, guys that are in Texas are going to want a little pre-warm up before the PGA Championship. Webb. So side note, this is Webb Simpson's home course. He actually has a house like right off one of the greens. I forgot which one. And the one thing Webb does well is this area right here, this plus 200 approach, the drive. Let me go take a look. Let's look into Webb Simpson just a hair more. So he's averaging 300. Of course, where he was elite, but he does have the putter going again, and he wasn't ball striking and he wasn't putting, so that was really bad. Special was at the Valspar, which is not a bad comp. Like I said, it's been kind of a rough go. Of course, Paul Tesori went over to Cam Young, so he's also got a different caddy. But all that said, I'm just letting you know, I mean, if the guy is going to do well, he's going to pop up and do well. This could be the track. And, of course, this is where he plays all the time. All right, Sam Ryder, nope. I will wait, maybe at the Byron Nelson, but not the course that I want to play as Sam Ryder. Bo Hosler, you see he's got some distance. No, good showing at the Zurich. Had a chance to win that thing with Wyndham Clark, but no thank you. Just not enough there. I think if you want to talk values, but you can see, man, it's been super volatile, almost like Siwoo Kim. Either the guy's top fiving or he's missing cuts, but we've seen he's won an elevated event before. The guy is a ball striking master, and we saw what he did on Bermuda at Bay Hill with the putter. It's like lightning in a bottle. So again, you can get him top 10, I believe it's 14 to 1, something like that. Of course, he's 100 to 1, 120 to 1 to bet. I say I'm going to definitely play him in DFS, and I did bet him top 10. All right, I'm going to kind of fly through some of the rest of this. We're taking a little longer. I got Benoit, Benoit, and he's a ball striking master. You can see back in 2017 did well. But again, that would have been equal points, so I keep forgetting that. But the Valero showed up. Not the greatest Mexico Open. I think a lot of people, for his price tag and also what we were expecting for him to do there, did not show up. But could be an interesting play down there. Benny Martin, not the skill set I'm looking for. Nick Harding, I told you guys, it kind of no reason not to also play him if you're going to go with my ball striking. I just, again, was too many guys, but I'll probably sprinkle him. Benny Griffin, a guy figures out a way to score. He's got two elite things, right? The putting and the distance. So not a bad play either, but didn't make. All these other guys, Shank. Usually when we go to Bermuda, but let me see here. Built up here in 2019. It could be an interesting play down below there. Taylor Pendrith, right, came out the Mexico Open. He shot 700 the first day, something like that. then kind of just faded away. So no, Matty Wallace. That was kind of shocking that Matty Wallace did not have a better showing. After I don't know if he's been just really enjoying that win at Corrales, but everything said that Matty Wallace should have played well there, and he did not. Let's go take a look at his stats real quick. I'm just curious. I'm guessing it's the putter. Yeah, so he lost. He's been struggling with the putter, lost 3 strokes, and did not gain off the tee, which he's got length, but it can get wayward, but did gain with the irons. I guarantee you no one's going to be playing a whole lot of him, but Akshay Bhatia at that price tag, of course, a good showing against the Mexico Open. He'll probably go miss the cut here, but again, his skill set, again, I kind of think him a little, Sahith Theegala is a better putter than Akshay, but of course I mentioned, how well he did putting on the past column, but it's, you can see it's been a while. The other time he gained was at the Valspar. Sam Stevens, told you I bet him a top 10. And also, I think he's 180 to 1 to win or something like crazy. But so if you want to take a super long shot, but I have more of a top 10 possibility. Of course, it's either miscut or top 5, which I like to see that. And also, if you look at where he's had success, they are on longer courses. You can see averaging around 315 and also pretty accurate. But the Valero, it's a good track. Corrales is longer. Puerto Rico, all these around 7,400, 7,500 yards. The Farmers, the Houston Open, Sanderson Farms. He kind of seems like he does show up well on the big boy tracks. Hubbard, nope. No, thank you. Danny, Aaron Ryle, again, guys that I would plug in for more of a tighter track. Svensson, I thought about him for a bit. He also is another guy that can get it done without, of course, having the elite distance, but does hit a lot of fairways. Kind of fits in a Griot category, so I don't mind that. But I'm going to go to Luke List to get another shot. Even though he missed the cut at the Open by 1 stroke, had a really bad Thursday, had a good Friday, but just missed it by a stroke. I think he ended up shooting 1 under. But his skill set, of course, also you can see pretty good history here. And I think it's crazy that he's actually the worst putter out of all these guys. Let's go take a look at that. That's amazing. Well, almost the worst. We're 156 players. Maybe don't have some. Yeah, look at the strokes lost. The last time he gained was at the Players, which is interesting. I just don't understand how a professional golfer, like I would be trying every system of putting and putter. Like if you just need to break neutral to have a shot to be like top 10, because again, he's an elite ball striking talent. And I just think for this course, it just makes sense. Also, if we look at Luke List, there's a good comparable course, Bethpage Black. I'm just going to pull that out. And that, I believe, was the PGA, where he had a 6. Now, this is a while ago, but I'm just kind of stating that there's certain courses that this guy just shows up at. And so that's why I also feel comfortable. You could put Bramlett right in there with Luke List. They're kind of very similar, but at least Luke List has the history. Will Gordon, kind of very similar too, has the ball striking, the putters, the issue. But all these guys, I would rather take their talent and hope that the putter is just decent. All right, I'm going to kind of skip over these guys. Garrick Hago, right, kind of a little bit fits this model, but it's been a bit of a struggle bus with him. But if you want to get some differentiation, not a terrible play. Eric Cole would be the one guy that I'm thinking about playing just because of how well he's been on a recent form. And what's his distances? I don't think is going to hit him too much. Still hits it around 305 average. But the guy, the more I get to watch this guy, what he does with the putter, and the irons just need to gain a stroke, and he can gain off the tee. So I don't know. For that price tag, I feel like it's a pretty good value is why I'm looking at him. I think I have one more play. Cameron Champ, which I already talked about. Yeah, I've just seen it before, and again, he's got the one trick pony at this point. If you look over, but to see that his irons fired finally, that he had this nice ball striking outing again with the putter. At least he kind of showed up at the Valero a little bit. Had this decent little pocket, so you can see where if you kind of go through Cam's history, Cameron Champ, he'll string together 2 good outings. Watch. So here's 3 good outings and a bunch of miscuts. When he's won, he's put like 3 good outings together. 3 good outings. Like he seems to like streak. And so that's where this is coming from. If you're interested in why I'm picking him. Okay, that's it for my picks. I will summarize this for you real quick. and then we'll go look at ownership projections and get you guys out of here. So actually I have 26 guys identified. Now remember, I've got quite a few at the like 7,000 and below range. But yeah, if you're going to pay up, you might as well go with Rory. Now, again, I want to hear what's going on. And I'm kind of shocked at his putter, because I felt like Rory was really putting well there for a while. Yeah, so I mean, if you go back, of course, the FedEx Cup that he won, don't have the Masters data, but you can see he lost at the Players. So, I mean, the putter would be the one thing, of course, that would hold Rory back. But, I mean, we know he can definitely putt here, and it showed with the finishes consistently. So, if I'm going to pay up, I'm going to go with Rory. And then in the 9,000 range, I'm looking at Jordan, Homa, Hovland, and Day. And then the 8,000 range, Cameron Young, Sahith Theegala. And then when we get into the 7s, Killer Keith, Wyndham Clark, Bradley, Taylor Moore, Gary Woodland, Rogers, Davis, Griot. It's a lot of guys in the 7s. Scott, Kitayama, Benoit An. I mean, probably if I want to get back down to 25, I'll take Benoit An off. It's probably the guy that will probably not get played as much. And then when you get in like the low, almost in the 6,000s, like Shea, Sam Stevens, Luke List, Joseph Bramlett, Will Gordon, Eric Cole, Cameron Champ. Oh, and I forgot, way down here to 6,400, if you want the cheapie plays, Trey Mullinax would be my long shot. But the guy's skill set, of course, kind of fits. And, of course, he does have a win on the PGA Tour, which, what was that, the Barbasol? Or was it the Barracuda? As you guys know, I always the Barbasol. Okay. Let's just go look at where he's had his best finishes. Of course, the win. Got some Korn Ferry stuff. The Valero, good comp. Houston Open, Sanderson Farms. But then also he's got, he likes TPC Southwind, funny enough. Arnold Palmer, the Valspar. He showed up at Arnold Palmer, and I forgot that. I think Mullinax is a good cheap play. I'm going to play some of him, and, I recommend him for you guys. If you are getting a little heavy up at top, I'm not going to try to dip too many times below 7,000, or at least these guys right here is kind of like my last guys in, but maybe a few lineups I get a little nutty with a Cam Champ, Trey Mullinax build. All right, guys, that's it. You've got my picks. And now, last but not least, real quick, let me refresh this. So we have the freshest of data. All right, we got 2,000 lineups generated, which that's pretty good sample of data. And I think everybody's kind of feeling what I'm thinking. And, here's the top 3 guys, as you see that I'm on. People are still looking at Homa to do well. Like I said, I mean, depending on ownership, I'm a little nervous about Max. So that will probably where I will probably lessen him in my bills. You got Spieth, Day up there. Some of the usuals, Gary Woodland from that price tag, a lot of people are high on. Won't shock me. He'll go out and miss the cut this week. Just look at some of my picks where they fit. Rogers is over 12%. Theegala, Griot, Bradley. Then some of the guys under 10. Kitayama, Clark, Luke List, Scott, Davis, below 8%. You got Bramlett at below 7. Eric Cole below 6. Akshay down below, so that's kind of interesting. And I get it. I mean, he could definitely could go south, but I think his skill set could lend to this course. Will Gordon 3%. Cameron Champ all the way below 2. My Mullinax is around 1%. Let me see if I see anybody down here that I think Pearson Cootie's kind of interesting. Let's click on him real quick. Yeah, he just got some distance, pretty accurate. The guy went nuts with his irons at maybe it was the Honda. I don't know. I don't think it's a terrible play. What's his price tag again? 6,500. So that's another one down there that I might sprinkle. Ryan Gerard, I think he's got a pretty good skill set for this course from what I've seen. Of course, it's been pretty light sample. JB Holmes, funny enough, and Duffner, I kind of put those, I lump those two guys right together. Good ball strikers, still can ball strike, but pretty brutal. I highly doubt Ryan Brim is going to play in this event. He's WD'd a couple times, right? The Zurich, and then also the Mexico Open. Okay, that gives you an understanding of ownership. Let's jump out here and wrap this thing up. Okay, with all that said, thank you so much for spending some time with me. As always, I hope that helped give you some ideas where I'm going from a DFS, give you some betting ideas. If you do me the honor, as always, click that like button, share it with anybody else. If you've not subscribed for some odd reason, hit that subscribe button and follow me on Twitter, where I keep up with everything coming out of the PGA for withdrawals or pressers or anything I see. I tweet it out if I think it's worthwhile. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Wells Fargo. I highly doubt I'll do it before the lock show, because unless I see something that is very intriguing that I think you guys need to know, I don't see the reason to even put a show. So I think you got everything you need, and it's all in one. All right, guys, take care. Enjoy the weekend, and best of luck to us at the Wells Fargo. Talk to you later.